Summer is nearing its end and school is back in session, but in the world of video games, the summer is typically a slow period, marked with the occasional bit of hype about a new game, new console, or some other worthy news item. Even though we here at Downloadable Content took a break from recording for the summer, we certainly didn't stop playing. So on today's episode, we go around the group and talk about all the games we played on our summer break. What about you? What games grabbed your attention as you hid from the evil burning Daystar? Listen in, next on Downloadable Content. Hello everybody, welcome to Downloadable Content. I am Brian, and with me we have Nick.
Hello.
We have Gabe.
Big fan of the burning Daystar.
Well, you do live in Texas after all. I mean, it's kind of...
Yeah, for now. For now.
But only for now. But only for now. Okay. Downloadable Content, the musical, ladies and gentlemen.
That's the spontaneous musical.
Yeah,
That's when you know you're in trouble.
Yes, it's spontaneous Broadway. But yes, we are going to be talking about what games we played over the summer break. So welcome back, everybody. The E3 seems like a way distant memory, especially when you have the Trump administration, where every day feels like 90 years. So, before we dive into our discussion on our first episode back, just want to remind everyone that every single episode of Downloadable Content still can be found on our website, at dlcpodcast.com. Episodes are also on iTunes, YouTube, Stitcher, Google Play Music, and we have on the Downloadable Content website the upcoming slate of episodes for most of the rest of the year. So check them out and let us know if you want to partake in any of those episodes. So they're up, all there, dlcpodcast.com. All right, so it's been a couple of months, gentlemen, since we last convened on Downloadable Content, and I'm sure we've, not only done, summer vacation things or spent all of it working, whatever floats your boat, hiding indoors from the evil burning Daystar, because I'm sure all of us take 1 foot outside and burn to a crisp. At least that's me.
Yeah, then you peel off and then you're completely ghost white again.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's me.
Yeah. You don't get the nice golden brown stage. Just go right to crisp.
Yep. Lobster color.
Down here, considering it's like 6 months of summer, you sort of get eased into it, eased into the oven, as it were. But, we went up to New York and New Jersey for the end of July, and then came back for the hottest week of the year, obviously, because you can't miss that. That's its own special feature.
Well,
it's 112, yeah.
Well, I just loved it. We've been enjoying some real nice, 60 and 70 degree weather this week, and it's finally fall's here. And then we've gotten the weather report that the weather is about to shoot back into the muggy high 90s for the rest of this week. It's like, great, summer, part 2.
Yeah,
Resummering.
It's summer reminding you, going, hey, I've got 2 weeks left, you little shits. Don't kick me out just yet.
We've had 50-degree nights, which is kind of cool. I mean, literally.
Well, yes, in all the ways, but also glad that you are safe and sound after the hurricane, after Harvey decided to make a mockery of Texas.
Yeah. Well, that's what hurricanes do. And fortunately for us, we live in Austin, not Houston, so.
Yep. So, but yes.
We just got rain and a tree hit our apartment,
I saw
the
that.
usual. Yeah,
it only did major structural damage. It's fine.
No, it didn't. That's the thing that's amazing to me. It's this big effing tree, and all it did was destroy the gutter. I'm really impressed somehow that it didn't do major damage.
Well,
it didn't attack the weak points. That's why it didn't do massive damage.
There you go. There you go. So, with that out of the way, let us begin by going around the group here to talk about what games we played over the summer, because, as I mentioned in the intro, and as we all know, summer's a typically slow period, but we don't stop playing. I mean, we've got new games, we've got some great new indie games, we've got the Switch,
Well, you've got the Switch.
And Nick's got the Switch, so...
Yeah.
So, let's go around the group here. Let's start with Nick.
Boy, I had a busy summer between work and just all the game time I've had, being able to just finally just kind of get back into some of the projects that I've been kind of working on over the last year. Been on a major Dragon Quest kick, so I ended up playing the Super Famicom translated versions of the first 3 Dragon Quest games, which they arguably they are the hardest of the three the versions.
Oh boy! I mean, you and I were talking about this a couple days ago on Steam, but yeah, that's having played through every Dragon Quest game, all of the numbered ones. That's. I'm surprised you continued after 2.
Maybe this is just me, but after playing quite a number of Dragon Quest games, you start to learn what enemies can and can't do and how to shut them down. Because pretty much Dragon Quest 2, everything is out to kill you.
And there's a continuity between, because I haven't played any of them. So
the first 3 is known as the Erdrick trilogy. 4, 5, and 6 is known as the Zenithian trilogy, and then 7, 8, and then 9, I believe, are their own separate entries in the series. But
when I say continuity, I mean in terms of like the enemies. The same kind of things work across different games.
For the most part, there are some minor variances and tweaks to the series as the years have come, but I have found that, especially in the remakes, that surround is your friend.
Yeah.
When you go up against the Cyclops, having them have put surround on them, and unlike the NES version, surround actually works.
Yep.
So that was kind of nice. But just learning about if enemies cast spells, then they're most likely going to be affected by stop spell. If a lot of enemies have at least some susceptibility to sleep. Enemies, if they hit like a mother, then you want to use surround. So, Dragon Quest II, I think, gets a bad rap for being, brutally unforgiving. But once you kind of familiarize yourself with the lay of the land, I don't think it's as. This is just me speaking, and maybe it's because I introduced myself to other titles in the series first, but it didn't seem as difficult for me, although Malroth did kick my ass even at my high levels, but...
Yeah, I mean, for Dragon Quest II specifically, I mean, I was fine with that, because I played Dragon Quest II on an NES emulator, and just that final island where the encounter rate and the difficulty spike.
Oh, the Cave to Roan.
Yeah, just ooh, that was work. That was work.
What was very interesting in Dragon Quest III, though, for both the Super Nintendo and the Game Boy Color version, is they have personalities to your characters.
Yes.
And I just found that very interesting after playing the NES version and noticing the differences between the two. And maybe this is Japan, you know, back in the early 90s, but it was heavily skewed towards you playing an all-female party.
Well,
because females just got the better exclusive personalities over the males.
all right.
Especially the sexy personality, which gave you like an aggregate 70% boost to your stats.
Oh yeah, that's been a Dragon Quest thing forever. I mean, when I was introduced to the series years ago with Dragon Quest VIII, you know, the character of Jessica, she actually has a sexy stat, which...
Yeah, the sex appeal stat.
Yeah, which occasionally causes enemies to not attack because they're staring at her gigantic rack. So it's...
Oh, man.
Yeah, that's... so it's a thing.
Yep.
It is definitely a thing, but good. So, I mean... I'm glad that you're playing through Dragon Quest. I mean, I really enjoyed that series, even though by and large the gameplay has not changed in the 25 or so years.
I think that's why I like it, is because it is not like, say, Final Fantasy that tries to reinvent the wheel every time it goes up to the plate. That there is some sort of familiarity with it, and I think it's kind of the Mega Man syndrome, for me at least. If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Very
and
true.
I do really appreciate that out of the Dragon Quest series. That said, I have been playing Dragon Quest IX, and while I do enjoy the game, it is definitely not my favorite of the bunch.
Yeah,
I don't know what it is about it, because it's nothing too different from the rest of the series. I should like it. It's just there's something about it. I haven't put my finger on it yet.
I can make a stab at it because I felt sort of the same way. Because for me in Dragon Quest IX, it was very hard to get attached to your characters because you created your characters.
Mm-hmm.
So then there's less like specificity in the storyline.
Correct.
Yeah, your created party members pretty much aren't affected in the story at all.
Yeah,
And
that's like the trade-off, I guess. Sorry.
I mean, Dragon Quest III kind of did a bit of the same thing in terms of creating your party, but it's just something different with this. I'm pretty sure it's something with the combat system itself. But I just haven't quite put my finger on it. Moving on from that, I have also taken the time to play, well, 2 brand new games. Being Sonic Mania, which I'm sure we will be getting into that in just a bit. But before that, I played Mario and Rabbids Kingdom Battle, and I had a lot of reservations about this game, because if you had told me last year that there was going to be Mario working with the Rabbids in an RPG, and that was going to be good, I would have laughed at you.
That is quite a tough sell.
But Brian, you and I were talking about this. The Rabbids are just the Mushroom Kingdom is just crazy enough, and just and just out of place that the Rabbids actually made a good fit. And the fact that they put in a simple but fairly difficult tactical RPG game out of it, very much like XCOM, at least from what I've heard. I've never played the XCOM series, but I thoroughly enjoyed it, because unlike other tactics games like Final Fantasy Tactics, Disgaea, Fire Emblem, etc., I didn't feel like I really had to micromanage things. It was kind of more, place and go. and really using your character's key strengths and key, fixed strategic advantages over, really micromanaging your characters. So I did like that a lot.
The Mushroom Kingdom, I was looking forward to this game because, I am not really a fan of tactical RPGs, yet I love D&D. Go figure. When I saw this game announced and I saw the still shot of Miyamoto and the head of Ubisoft with their gun arm things, I'm like, well, now this could be interesting. And yes, to Nick's point, I said, you have the Rabbids, who are basically the redheaded stepchild of Ubisoft's everything. Yeah, and you put them in the Mushroom Kingdom, and I'm like, okay, the Mushroom Kingdom is just whimsy, has just enough whimsy in it where the Rabbids could work. And I am not far into the game. I only just got past the first real boss of the game, Rabbid Kong.
Okay.
So I am very early in this game, but I find myself really, really liking it. The tactical RPG aspect is not over the top or too convoluted. It's pretty simple. It's pretty direct, and it's like, oh, all right, and the skill trees make sense.
But the challenges placed in the game do make it so that you can't just barrel your head through everything and just try and power yourself through it. You still have to have a whole mediocre of strategy to where you can place characters to get through the battle, because most of the time, your characters have to live through multiple battles. So, you have to really think about, okay, where is everyone going? But yet, to get the gold medals, you still have to do it within a certain time limit. So it does kind of force you to be aggressive about it as well. It really did rack your brain quite a bit, but it wasn't beyond my comprehension, so I do enjoy that.
Yeah. Is that just for the Switch? Then?
Yes.
Yeah, well, one day when I get a Switch, I'll have to check it out. It sounds fun.
It definitely graphically looks like it was made for the Wii U first and got ported over, but...
isn't that like most Nintendo games, though? They look like they were...
At least the early ones. I think Odyssey, that's coming out later this year, is probably going to be the first one that, if I had to guess, is going to be, like, truly designed and made for Switch.
Yeah, I just meant Nintendo games, like, in general. The games you get for the Wii U, at least for the first half of its life, seemed like they were just Wii games that, ran out of time, and I don't know. Anyway, I was just making a random point, I guess.
And finally, Brian, because I know you have been playing it as much as I have, Sonic Mania, which is the game we've been waiting for over 20 years.
Oh my god, my heart, my childhood. This, I bought it day one.
Nice.
Like, I knew it was coming out. I put money on my eShop account the night before, and then when I woke up that Tuesday morning, first thing I did, I got out of bed, turned on my Switch, and bought the game because I wanted to play it the second I got home.
See, I had the Steam version, and unfortunately I had to wait 2 weeks because it got delayed. But I managed to, not really expose myself too much of Sonic Mania, and was able to, once I was all done with Mario and Rabbids, kind of sit down and play it, and leave it to the fans of all people to create a Sonic game that the Sonic team has failed to come up with in over 20 years. And really just shows that sometimes developers, in the pursuit of creating something for game length or for something different or for, whatever the reason may be, that they lose sight of the spirit of what the series was always about. And Sonic Mania captured the real lifeblood of Sonic and Company perfectly. While it does have some problems, and how it all works is a lot of the stages are callbacks to old Sonic games, and pretty much the first act is lifted straight from the original game. So it was kind of a little bit of lack of creativity, with the small exception of hiding the big rings for Chaos Emerald challenges and whatnot, and maybe making some layout changes to accommodate Knuckles and Tails, but for the most part, I felt it was kind of left in place, at least for the first acts, and then the second acts really, ramped up the uniqueness of the game.
Yeah, I mostly agree with that, because, when you're the first act of the game, the first zone is Green Hill Zone, and, I'm thinking, all right, I know this board, I know this layout like the back of my freaking hand.
Yeah.
All right, but I realized that in each zone, the first acts, as Nick said, it's not identical to the original Genesis layout. There are some changes.
Yes, there are some, but there's a lot of set pieces that I recognize from playing the old Sonics.
And I think that was an intentional design choice.
Yeah.
Because then you get to the Act 2s of each of these stages, and you've never seen it. It's all new.
Yeah, and from a writing standpoint, that makes perfect sense to me, especially if, like you said, it's being constructed by the fans, at least partly, and also, it's simultaneously an homage and a moving forward with that spirit that originally came from the original games. I mean, that makes total sense to me. You get to experience what you had all those years ago without having to buy countless re-editions of the same thing over and over again. There's some evolution, some changes. It makes it more, like subtle changes and fixes and whatever. Again, I haven't played this one yet. I'm excited to one day, but I have not. And I haven't. Between the three of us, I've certainly spent the least amount of time on Sonic games, but yeah, as a concept, that makes perfect sense to me. It just, you bring in everything that was wonderful, you remember it, and then you move forward, and it really, I think that probably was part of why the rest of it was so successful and such a smooth experience, or such a successful throwback to the old gameplay, is because they had to incorporate the old gameplay with the original maps and stuff to do that. I don't know.
What I did find interesting, what I did really appreciate of the game is in the no save file of Sonic Mania, you're able to make some changes to your gameplay. The actual Sonic Mania game, Sonic has an all-new drop dash, which as soon as Sonic hits the ground, he can go right into a dash attack, or like a spin dash, really, like a really weak spin dash, which, can help kind of take out some enemies, on the ground that might be right in front of you. It's a good oh shit mechanic, basically. But you can change it, only in the no save file. That you can choose which Sonic power-up you get. You can have Sonic 3's spinning airstrike move, or they call it the Insta-Shield, or you can have Sonic CD's Turbo Dash, which I thought was very interesting add-ons. There's also a full-on debug mode done, I believe, the same way as Sonic 1, so nice throwback there. And then as a good internet joke, they also added the and Knuckles mode. So you can literally have Sonic and Knuckles, Tails and Knuckles, Knuckles and Knuckles.
Nice.
Just to make things a bit fun. I mean, I really noticed Sonic Mania really, really deviating, really saying that this isn't your father's Sonic game was Chemical Plant Act 2.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Well, actually, it was one of my favorite acts in the game.
Chemical Plant Act 2, because it was like in Chemical Plant 1, it's like, okay, there you had some differences, like the ooze rising in Act 1, which is normally an Act 2 thing in the original game, but then Act 2 was just its own unique entity. Like, what the hell do these syringes do? And they make
DNA particles and
it turns the slime into flubber. All right, you could. And DNA particles, and I'm so glad that they kept the most terrifying music in all of video games in it.
Yeah, the drowning music.
The drowning music,
Oh god, yeah.
I have played Resident Evil, I have played Silent Hill and Eternal Darkness. Nothing scares me more.
Nothing's a sense.
Also, speaking of Chemical Plant, the boss fights in the game all presented a different, unique challenge to each zone, and it was very, I guess, more tongue-in-cheek humor and more callbacks to old series. To past games, even non-Sonic main Sonic titles. That I won't go too deep in here because I feel that people ought to play it and experience it for themselves to truly understand and appreciate it. But I just really enjoyed how some of the boss fights and even some of the mini bosses played out, and really just. Even just the jabs at themselves and at Sonic Team was really a real nice touch. I did enjoy that, but more than anything, hitting the checkpoints and going through that circle ring, thinking I'm gonna go into playing the slots and fulfilling my gambling addiction. Instead, I get the Blue Sphere challenges. Some of them are from the No Way Secret in Sonic 3 and Knuckles, which I have played those, so it didn't throw me off that much.
Oh, those stages, and I there's like how many? There's like 30 or 40 of those stages.
32, I believe.
Because the very first one that I saw was, get the blue spheres. I think April just heard me cackling in childhood glee. Because I was just like, yes! And so then, the first 2 or 3 of those, I'm like, okay, I recognize these layouts from the original game.
Lifted straight from Sonic 3.
Yep. And then I see one that it's like, oh, wait a minute. I don't recognize these colors.
Oh, I did, because I remember them playing in the Sonic 3, like, the No Way Secret. I was like, wow, they pulled from those. It was like, it was, the memory was fuzzy to me, but it was like, yeah, I totally remember these, playing them on the PC version of Sonic 3 and Knuckles, and it was like, holy crap. And the fact that they thought that kind of, had that kind of thought and planning, because not many people had played those secret Blue Sphere stages, was kind of like a nice little gotcha without really, redesigning all new Blue Sphere stages. Although they did, as part of the extra secrets in the extras menu, creating some very unique Mania challenges for the Blue Spheres, and those are not easy. I will tell you that much.
Some of those layouts are new to Sonic Mania. So
yeah. I was never good at those to begin with. So.
That's all I played for like a good chunk of 1999. Those were just all I did were Blue Sphere stages, and I just managed to get very, very good at those.
I love those. I mean, I still haven't gotten them all yet, but they're, especially some of the newer layouts, the ones that I have never seen. I'm just like, oh boy. And it's like, even to this day, when I get onto a Blue Sphere stage, I'm like, nope, not using the joystick. I'm going right back to the D-pad for this.
Oh, I played D-pad the whole way through.
Yeah, that's fine. So whether you have the Switch version or the PC version, well, the Switch version obviously doesn't have achievements, but I have the Switch version because I was like, I've got this $300 console. Let me build up a library for it. So
all I will say is, as I was playing through Sonic Mania, thank God I took the time to play another game before that.
Oh man, it was
just throwing that out there. I'm glad I took the time to play another game.
I have not yet completed Sonic Mania, but it's got tons of replay value. I'm 7 years old again. It's just a wonderful. I've said it on DLC before. I'm one of those sticks in the mud that really, really felt that Sonic's move to 3D was just wrong. Pure 100% wrong. So I'm glad to see this game finally, like, yes, I've been waiting for you for so long. And even the stages that are new to this game, that are individual to this game, still, they still have that feel like they should have belonged in the Genesis, but I have nothing but love and joy and appreciation for this game. I
mean, that's what you get with a fan, like something that's made really from the heart, and I love that they even, I don't know if you guys saw this, they threw in the buzzing from the 25th anniversary stream fiasco. There's a stage where you can actually find that notorious buzzing that was happening during that live stream.
Oh, I don't know that well.
No, but yeah, for the 25th anniversary live stream event, it just went down so poorly, and fans got so upset because the whole thing was botched, and there was this loud buzzing in the background the entire time. And there's a certain stage where there's one of those error sort of loading screens in the background, and it even has the date of that live stream in small lettering. And you can hear the buzzing. And so it's like a little throwback to basically one of the worst.
Oh, I wonder if that's at the... Okay, I think I know where you're talking about and where that might have come in. So I did not know that was a reference.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's awesome that they can acknowledge, Sonic's successes and their failures, and as much as I would agree that the jump to 3D Sonic was disastrous, I think I'm glad that they did whatever they could to stay afloat and stay relevant, instead of just saying, well, no one's going to want this anymore, and Mega Manning it, you know what I mean? Just saying, well, we're done.
Yeah, here's the thing with me is, for Sonic Team, I just feel like when you are making, and I still consider Sega a AAA company, whether it really is or not, that's up for debate, and that's for another day. But for companies like that are trying to make $60 games, it is very hard to justify $60 for a game that you can blast through in 3 to 4 hours.
Yeah, agreed.
So Sonic Team has always tried to come up with something to elongate the game because of how fast Sonic moves. So they included Tails and Knuckles segments in Sonic Adventure 2. They offered multiple different playable characters. They added a Werehog segment and tried to be God of War. They've done mini challenges. They've done so many of these other things. They're now doing original characters. And I understand the points, the points and the reasons why they do what they do, and I do understand it. But I feel like sometimes that they try too hard to capture what the spirit of Sonic the Hedgehog is and leave it to a bunch of fans, what was, more or less considered a throwaway, to do a better job with Sonic than the Sonic team has done in over 20 years. It's kind of amazing. And even when Sonic Team did create something like Sonic 4, they still couldn't 100% get that right. And it's just kind of amazing to me of, I guess the power of fans.
It just makes me feel that, that there are plenty of other fans out there who feel the same as I do, who went, no, none of this 3D bullshit. Just, we don't want it. Every time Sega keeps trying to, because here's how I think Sega kept trying to handle Sonic, was they basically saw everything that Nintendo was doing with Mario and all the different situations and scenarios and jobs that they gave to Mario. They went, let's try that with Sonic because it works so well with Mario. And then anytime they did, it just fell flat on their asses. And it was just like, and they kept trying. It's like, no, you cannot have Sonic be Mario.
Yeah.
They're two completely different characters. Mario makes his living off of jumping. Sonic makes his living off of pure raw speed. There's two very different dynamics, so you need to have two different approaches. You can't just try to copy what Nintendo does thinking that it will work for Sonic.
Yeah, and I mean, Mario is able to fill out resumes and get any job he wants, and Sonic is a hedgehog. You can't forget that.
So, yes, that was, for the most part, my summer. I also had a little bit of fun with Viscera cleanup detail, but that's just me fulfilling some cleaning OCDs and more practice for my job, but that's besides the point.
Alrighty. We have a little time left in the first half, so Gabe.
All right. I have a whole handful that I didn't even realize I've played in the past handful of months, but I guess I'll mention the shorter ones first. Okay, so I played Dear Esther, however, whatever. I played Dear Esther is what I'm trying to say, and played is really not the right word for it. It's a walking simulator, so you move around, but I don't know. I mean, like, I've played plenty of walking simulators that are great. Like, Gone Home is technically a walking simulator, is it not?
Yeah, it is. So,
and it's fantastic. Maybe it's my perspective as someone who writes poetry and just writing in general and has a deeper appreciation for good writing. Or maybe it's just that I read some reviews and it sounded like it was going to be this experience. But I was so bored. I don't know. I don't want to trash talk it because it obviously was a labor of love. But I mean, like, for those of you who haven't played it, which is probably most people, you're like on this island and you're walking around and you can't do anything except walk around, and every now and then you find an area and a voiceover comes on and it's talking in snippets about like a car crash, about like liver cancer or something, and like some other bullshit, and it's all trying to be sort of pseudo poetic at the same time, but because the cue triggers where the voiceover will happen are scattered around, unless you're going quickly, by the time you get to the next voiceover, it's been like not 15, but it's been like 5 minutes since the last thing you heard. So it's like, wait, what are we talking about again? I mean, I'm very much a scour the earth kind of person, so that when I play a game, so that might have made it worse, because every spot I got to, I'll walk around like, oh, what's there to see? What's there to do? And the problem with Dear Esther, even the Landmark Edition, which is the one I had, is that there is nothing to do. I think the objective is to just go through it as quickly as possible so you don't forget the narrative. But that's not the way I play, and I can't mention this enough, you cannot walk more than a snail's pace speed, which makes it very difficult anyway. There are some great visuals. I took some really pretty screenshots, and there was one or two moments that were like kind of touching, but the rest of the time I was almost rolling my eyes at it, and I felt kind of let down. That was that one. I don't know if either of you have played it.
I've heard of it, but I have not played it. There's very few games in the walking sort of simulator thing that I actually really enjoy. I mean, Gone Home I actually did really enjoy.
Yeah.
I did enjoy Gone Home. I mean, my only gripe with that is that they charged way too much for...
Yeah.
Way too much for how short the game actually is, but that's that's a different
considering
argument.
they have like a speed run challenge of it where if you can beat the whole game in like minutes or less, I don't even know. So yeah, I would agree there. Gone Home is a great experience, definitely worth buying on sale.
On sale only. Yeah. Don't pay full price for Gone Home.
Yeah, no. Which is just, it's a shame to have to say that about something that was so, I think beautifully done, Gone Home was, but, I hate to say, well, don't support them at full price, but, ultimately I think if I bought it at full price, I would have felt a little let down as well, but it's still a world of difference from Dear Esther. Anyway, on the subject of walking simulators, a really quick one, and actually saying the title of this is practically as long as the game itself, and that might be a cue for those of you who've played it. Dr. Langeskov, the Tiger, and the Terribly Cursed Emerald. It's by the makers of the Stanley Parable, or one of the makers, because I think what happened was they made the Stanley Parable, and then the two of them went their separate ways. And one of them made the Beginner's Guide, which I'll get into in a minute because I also did that. And the other made Dr. Langeskov, the Tiger, and the Terribly Cursed Emerald, which is just this absurd... It's very much in that over-the-top meta sort of aspect of the Stanley Parable, except taken to more of an extreme.
Oh,
you're
God.
like behind... You're behind the premise is you're behind the scenes in this like live video game, and all the people have quit or been maimed or whatever else because maintaining the concept of this like interactive video game-esque thing involving an actual tiger, and a terribly cursed emerald has taken this insane toll on the employees that worked there. There's like a bunch throughout the game, there's like resignation notices and talks about having been mauled and stuff like that. Anyway, it's got this really sick sense of humor, which is great. I played through the whole narrative in like an hour, but it's free for starters. It's free. I can't stress that enough. It's a walking simulator that will, I don't know, you'd have to have a really bad sense of humor to not get anything out of it in terms of laughter. It has achievements, it's free, and it's a quick little experience. You're trying to facilitate the scenes of this game from behind the scenes, and everything is going wrong. That's basically the best I can describe it. It's a lot of fun. I would recommend that.
I have played the Stanley Parable, so I have some idea of that sort of very meta, sarcastic humor that game is known for.
Yeah, and of course there's a narrator telling you what to do. And like, why aren't you? Come on! I mean, this is supposed to be live. We need to get going here, and oh shit, you released the tiger already. You weren't supposed to, that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
it's great. It's fantastic.
I'm like,
and
it's like the Truman Show. It's
yeah, it really is. It really is, and it anticipates, I think, the inner mischief of a given player. It anticipates all these ridiculous things. Like, it's a limited sandbox in the way that you can do a handful of things, or you can just follow the directions and go right through. But it anticipates you messing around and doing all this stuff, and it has appropriate narrative responses to it, which is, again, a huge difference between that and Dear Esther, where you're just in this empty, wide open space and nothing ever happens. So I would go back and play Dr. Langeskov, the Tiger, and the Terribly Cursed Emerald anytime. I could pick it up for an hour and enjoy it just as much, I think.
That with a name like that, it reminds me of an episode of Mystery Science Theater, a movie that they did called The Incredibly Strange Creatures Who Stopped Living and Became Mixed Up Zombies. So, just that that particular callback, if you are a fan of Mystery Science Theater. If not, then you can take that reference and just have it fly right over your head.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've seen some, but I haven't seen that.
So, do you have more games? Because if you do, we'll break here, then we'll start the second half with you.
Yes, I do have some more, but we'll go into them after. Unless you have like 5 minutes, I'd go into the beginner's guide now, but otherwise we'll go into after. Yep. It's your call.
Yeah, we're approaching the 50-minute mark here, so I want to break here, and then we'll pick up the second half with you.
Cool.
So, that is what we're going to do. So, on our second half, Gabe will continue running off what he played this summer, and then it's going to be my crack at it.
All right.
So, you'll have some music, as is our custom. You are listening to what we did on our summer vacation episode here on Downloadable Content. We'll be back. Welcome back to Downloadable Content, talking about what games we played over the summer break. We left off with Gabe at the end of the first half, talking about walking simulators. I think you might be one of the few people I know who actually plays them more than just once every 900 years. Like, you actually seek these games out.
Well, only the ones that are supposed to be good.
Fair enough. So you started talking about what you played, and then we had a break, so we're going to pick it right back up with you. So the floor is yours.
All right. Okay, so as I mentioned, the Stanley Parable team was basically like two guys, my understanding is, and one of them made Dr. Langeskov the Tiger and the Terribly Cursed Emerald, which is, I keep saying the full title because it's fun to say. And the other person made The Beginner's Guide, which is a very existential game in terms of playing through. I don't know if either of you are familiar with it.
That one I'm not.
Nope.
It's another one I would recommend, and I hate to be like everyone else who's into those things and recommends them, but again, if you're going to play a walking simulator, you want to play a walking simulator that doesn't suck or isn't pseudo-poetic and sorry, I'm just going to keep trashing on Dear Esther, Landmark Edition. A landmark in boredom, I assume. But The Beginner's Guide, for all the humor that's in Dr. Langeskov the Tiger and the Terribly Cursed Emerald, there really isn't any in The Beginner's Guide, and yet they're very. You can feel a connective tissue between the two of them, like a really strong thread. You can tell that they were made with a similar spirit. Without going too deep into it, the premise of The Beginner's Guide is, okay, I met this person back when we were both starting out making games, and he's essentially retired. He doesn't want any more to do with these games. He never released any of them. I think that's a travesty. You should experience some of these because they tell you something about yourself. And he's narrating as you go through these, and they're like, each area is maybe like a 10-minute area. And they were from the telling of the story, they're a complete, quote, game, where there's an objective, you meet that objective, and the game is over. It's not, a AAA title by any stretch of the imagination, but as the story progresses, as the narration continues, you get more insight into the relationship between these two game makers, how they view, the essence of what a game is or game design differently, and the way that causes, a real divide between them, and you experience that divide through the gameplay. So it's very personal, it's very touching, and yet at the same time, for my experience, I was able to relate to it completely. I was able, because the narration doesn't hold your hand necessarily, but it's all one concrete narrative that doesn't go in. It's direct. It's speculative in the way that anyone would be speculative about a relationship of any sort that is really fallen apart or diverted away from what they thought it was. It's essentially a conversation between the two game designers where one of the game designers is present as the narrator and the other one is impossibly absent, and in his place is just these games that he left behind. And again, in the way that I would play Dr. Langeskov the Tiger and the Terribly Cursed Emerald again to laugh, I would play the Beginner's Guide again to feel, and to feel deeply. There's a certain isolation and a certain longing in this game that comes through both in the narration and the gameplay. So,
very cool.
Yeah, that's my other. That one does cost money, but not a lot, and it's worth it. So those are my walking simulator experiences. One I'll just touch on really quickly is Town of Salem. I don't know if any of you guys have heard of or played it.
I have not played it myself, but there are lots of YouTube videos on Town of Salem, and it is mindfuckery to the max.
It is. It's fantastic. Brittany and I have both sunk way more time than I'd care to admit, like personally over 100 hours, I think, into this game, because it's the kind of thing that you can come home and then hang around casually, play 20 minutes of it, because every game takes somewhere between like 15 and 20 minutes, and then go on with your life, and that time adds up. And even though the game is structured the same way every single time, it's basically like Mafia or Werewolf, the party game, on steroids, with a bunch more roles and things to do. And, I think a pretty well constructed game engine that, keeps it going. The experience is totally different because you're dealing with live players that you've never met. Some of them are experts and they can see through any single bluff you could possibly think of. Oh yeah, you're obviously not the sheriff, you're the serial killer, because I've seen 1,000 times someone trying to pull this gambit saying they're the sheriff, so let's hang you. And then there's people who make just spectacular mistakes, including myself, many, many times, because there's something like 45 roles in the game, and even if you've played it for 45 hours, maybe you've only ever been the jailer 4 times. And, there are scrolls that you can get that will make it so you'll be pretty much guaranteed to play as the jailer or whatever role you desire. But if you just play it straight, you're dealing with luck of the draw, and sometimes you're the investigator for 3 games in a row. But, the replayability of it is due to that fact that you're constantly struggling to learn what you're doing against people who know what you're doing and people who have no idea. So there can be best laid plans going totally awry, and then there could be like the absolute most moronic thing and somehow it works. And of course there's a live chat the whole time, so there's a great degree of messing with people, which is...
Yeah, you really have to get creative with your lying, and that's probably why I wouldn't play it. But, and at least from what I've seen, some of the names that you can create to kind of have some fun with wills and documents and murder messages. It seems as though some of it is you can totally not take this seriously at all, and I think that's when those are some of the best moments. At least me watching Town of Salem, but definitely having a role and trying to mask who you are or trying to show who you are does really can really make it quite a challenge for no matter what you are, whether you're mafia, serial killer, executioner, township. It's definitely quite the tale.
Yeah, and they just made an expansion recently, which adds a whole coven of witches rather than just a witch role, and some other random things like a pirate. You can be a pirate now, which is fun. And it's just an absurd game. I'm horrible as the jester. The objective of the jester is to get yourself hanged, but it's really hard to convince people to hang you without them saying, "Oh, you're obviously trying to get hanged, so we won't do that."
Yep.
But it's such an absurd game, and I kind of want to just go play it right now. But yeah, there have been some absolutely miraculous games where I got by just by amusing the hell out of everyone and turning people to my side, even people who were aware that I was not on their side, just by being funny or being ridiculous. Because some people take it so seriously that you're like, thank goodness this is not over voice chat, because there would be people just shouting the whole time. It would be the worst experience ever. But over regular chat, it's like every hour or hour and a half, you get someone who's a total dick to you for no reason. So the best way to play the game is to just be ridiculous and enjoy it. And if someone's being a dick to you and you don't buy into it, then everyone has your back. Everyone else takes your side because that person is being unreasonable. Or, like, be like, yo, man, I'm sorry. I don't, you just be straight with them and they're freaking out and it makes them look stupid. And there's a part of me that I didn't know enjoys that. So.
You sadist fuck.
Yeah, Town of Salem, it's like $5.
Yeah, it is.
Worth. I have gotten my $5 worth, and I've gotten my $5 for the expansion worth. It's fun. It's stupid, but it's fun. Yeah. So, other than that, I don't know, Brian, were you gonna say something on that? Sorry.
I've never played Town of Salem, but I mean, I haven't played the card games that it is inspired by either. So
yeah, gotcha. Well, if you ever decide to pick it up, or if it's on sale and you decide to pick it up, let me know. I'd be happy to play some rounds with you and walk you through a little bit of it if you want to, have a little guided experience of it for a little bit. Although part of the fun is experiencing some of it blindly. It does help to have a guide in the beginning too, because like I said, having played it for over 100 hours, there's still a bunch of roles that I don't get entirely. I'm like, oh shit, how did I totally botched that, and I've played it forever, but yeah, so if you ever, and they have a free browser version as well. That's the cool thing too, is you can play it for free if you don't want to get Steam achievements, but there's like 300 Steam achievements.
Oh God.
It's insane.
Forget that.
Well, you're never going to get all of them, but sometimes it's nice to be like, yeah, I got an achievement. It's just like a little bonus in my brain. The other games I played some of Wasteland 2, which is the spiritual successor to the game that the original Fallout series was a spiritual successor to. I guess Wasteland 2 is a direct successor to Wasteland, of which Fallout, the original ones, was a spiritual successor. Anyway, that whole series is a mess. Not in a bad way, just the lineage of it, I guess. I played some of it. I'm into it, but I don't have enough time to... I've played 13 hours of it over the summer, and there is a lot to experience there. It's the mechanism, the game engine runs very smoothly for the most part. There's a couple story threads that could have been improved, but all in all, you find yourself sucked in and caring about the people that you're trying to save, and there's a definite sense of futility, like you can't save them all, which brings me to the other game that I was playing. If anyone wanted to talk about Wasteland 2, if you've played it, I'll wait, but otherwise, I don't want to waste too much more time. I know we're running short.
I've never played it, so...
Okay. Yeah. Fallout 4, again, I won't go into this too much, but I have still been playing some of the old Beast. Occasionally, when I get some mods that are cool, I'll try to go through that. But honestly, I'll talk more about it on the 20th anniversary episode. I'm plugging my own, involvement in the future. Look for that one. It'll be a great. But yeah, Fallout 4, I've had no motivation to complete the main storyline, and that's never a good thing, right? So, there's a problem with a lot of those open world games where you just get so diverted from the main quest, but this one is just even worse. I don't care. Yeah, he was my child. Sean, where is he now? Who knows? I don't care. I knew him for like 5 minutes. The world blew up. I got frozen. My husband got shot. I'm a wreck. I don't care. Like, they don't give you enough time in the pre-war era to be invested in your cookie-cutter family such that when you wake up and this entire world is fucked, you have any interest as a player in following what should naturally be your character's motivation, finding their child. So there's major ludonarrative dissonance there, but what can you do?
I mean, I kind of always felt that since Bethesda acquired Fallout, just the subsequent games has always, even though I've never played them, I always get the sense of it's post-apocalyptic Skyrim. But
well, yeah, but I will say, and again, this is a teaser for the Fallout 20th anniversary episode coming soon to a theater near you. Fallout New Vegas is a wonderful, wonderful game that I would pick up again and play now. In fact, I've played the whole game through twice because I liked it so much, and the story kept me, despite all the diversions, kept me engaged. That does not happen in Fallout 4, and that's been painful to continually admit. So that's it for me.
Well, there you go. Nicely done. I might have to take a closer look at Town of Salem. I'll have to see if that piques my interest a bit.
I would
Ryan,
love to harass
you would probably have some, quite a bit of fun, but you need friends that really have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, and again, just let us know. We will play with you. I keep trying to con my friends into getting it, and only a couple people have gotten it, so.
Well, I mean, I've been just so busy this summer.
Yeah.
I've been doing a lot of traveling, a lot of photography, that the times that I have had time to play video games, just have been not as often as I would like. However,
yes, tell us more.
However, Nick's already mentioned some of the games that Nick's played over the summer, the same ones that I've been playing, Sonic Mania, Mario and Rabbids, and, I've wrapped up Breath of the Wild, and I'm, still unlocking shit in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe.
Mm.
But the game that has grabbed me by the balls this summer is Darkest Dungeon.
Darkest Dungeon, the sexually aggressive game, grabbing people by the balls since 2017.
This game was gifted to me by Wyatt, and we had, I am such a sucker now since Eternal Darkness, for anything that's got a Lovecraftian sort of feel to it.
And that has dark in the title?
It doesn't necessarily need to have dark in the title. It's just a common thread, I suppose. But Darkest Dungeon is an RPG. And basically, it mixes a few genres. It mixes RPG elements with dungeon crawling elements, turn-based strategy, item management, and things like that. But there is a coherent plot to it. At the start of the game, you find out that you have inherited an estate from a relative who died. But died because of very, very unusual circumstances. Apparently, this relative, who is referenced in the game as the Ancestor, he was trying to seek fame and fortune by excavating the dungeons and catacombs and tombs beneath his manor. And in doing so, he wound up unearthing portals to dark dimensions and released a bunch of very nasty, evil, eldritch creatures into the world.
Ooh.
So, he ultimately, all of this, he decided to commit suicide rather than dealing with his major problem.
Oh man, gee, thanks, right?
So he unleashed all of these evil creatures out into, the manor, the manor and the surrounding hamlet town, where is basically your hub. So
yeah,
now,
and then he's like, "Well, I'm out."
Yeah, except this dead guy is the narrator of the game.
Oh, that makes sense.
So. But you find out why as the game progresses. But now the manor has passed to you! So now you have to recruit adventurers and mount expeditions to cleanse the town, the surrounding area, and the manor of all of its nasty beings. So you have the hamlet, which is the hub. And in this hamlet, you have to basically rebuild the town back up. Now, Wyatt gave me a very good bit of strategy, and it's a good way to approach the game. It's like, yes, building up your adventurers that you recruit and leveling them up is important, but really you're trying to level up the town. Because the more you rebuild the town, the better shit you get.
That makes sense.
So, as you are exploring the areas surrounding the town and the titular Darkest Dungeon, you're collecting treasure and heirlooms. You also find memoirs and journals that further expand on this story. Really, and you find out that your ancestor, really was a horrible human being.
To the surprise of no one.
Like, he didn't unleash all of this just as a passing intellectual curiosity. He's a rotten figure.
So he went out of his way to make things bad, sort of thing?
And then when he no longer could control it, he killed himself.
What a dick.
So... But each time you explore one of the 4 areas, you have the Cove, you have the Weald, you have the Warrens, and you have the Ruins. Each time you go in there, it's a randomly generated map.
Oh.
And you have an objective each time you go into these areas, whether it's clear this map of monsters, or explore 90% of the rooms, or find 3 of a specific item that you can bring back to the town. or cleanse the dungeon of, these cursed relics. Things like that. Each one has objectives that that have positive benefit, and there are 15 different classes of adventurers that you can use at any point. And you create a party of 4. I mean, you have Houndmasters, which you have Vestals, you have Hellions, you have Grave Robbers and Highwaymen and Abominations and Lepers and...
That's cool. That whole thing is cool sounding to me.
So each class has its own positive and negative, and their stats, or their abilities, are based on what position in the party they occupy. Whether in their position 1, 2, 3, or 4, certain abilities can only be used depending on what position they're in. So that's part of where the strategy comes in. It's like, okay, if you're going to if you know that there's a boss that you need to clear out, you want to have the right group of characters in that party. So you might want to have somebody who is a tank and just beats the shit out of people in the front, while in the back of the party you have an arbalest, which specializes in crossbows for long range and can get enemies in the back. Things like that. Have an occultist in like the middle 2, which can summon eldritch tentacles out of the ground to hurt the enemy. Things like that, and it's really, really amazing. This game is... I haven't finished it yet. I'm getting close, because the way you can't just plow through. You cannot plow through this game because, permadeath is a thing.
Oh.
So say you've been using this a particular group as your party, and you're leveling them up from level 1 to level 6, 1 being pathetic and newbie, and 6 being legendary. Then you come to a boss, and suddenly, guess what? You get down to 0 HP. Your characters, they are now on quote-unquote death's door. And if you do not heal them, anytime something happens to them, they can be killed permanently.
Ugh, permadeath.
Yeah. Permadeath is one of those things where, like, I hate it, but I like it at the same time. It really changes... It makes you think about your strategy more, but then, like, if you thought it out and you still failed, it's just really frustrating.
That's part of the point.
Yeah.
That's part of the point. I mean, but the thing is, there's in the town, there's a stagecoach, so at the end of every level, new heroes come to town, so you can start again. But... Yeah. As you level up the town, which includes the stagecoach, you will get heroes that come to town that are most of the way leveled up. So they're like, oh, you've leveled up the stagecoach to 100%, so it means that, from time to time, instead of having a bunch of level 0 nobodies, you'll have a level 4 character and be like, oh, I don't have to build up this character quite so much. And bring them right into your roster. And you ultimately have a max roster of 30 characters that you can have at any one time, but you can only take 4 with you on each level. So
Gotcha. And there's 15 jobs, so you could theoretically have 2 of each job?
Yeah.
Like a master and an apprentice.
You definitely can. Or if you wanted to be... if you wanted to really challenge yourself, you could do like you could do a Final Fantasy 1 thing and have 4 of the same class.
Yeah, let's take on the world with 4 arbalists.
Yeah, and have the arbalist in the front do nothing because all of its abilities are rely on range. Yeah. And, and something else that I really, really love about this is that it takes a little bit of a cue from the GameCube game Eternal Darkness, because not only do you have to worry about getting physically attacked and damaged by the nightmarish beasties that you encounter, but you also have mental fuckery.
Good, that makes total sense.
The deeper you go in a level, the more stress your characters build, and the stress meter goes from 0 to 200. When it gets to 100, when a character is at stress level 100, they will crack. And
oh, man.
When they crack, when they become afflicted by too much stress, either they will adopt a negative characteristic, like they'll become fearful, or they'll become selfish or irrational. Or
do different characters have different thresholds? I'm sorry.
No, at level 100, anyone becomes afflicted.
Yeah, I just mean, do their stress levels all rise at the same rate?
No, because you can modify that based on it gets modified based on their level, and they also have items that you can equip to each character, which can either increase or decrease the rate at which they get stressed.
Gotcha. Sorry, go on.
But sometimes enemies you encounter do not inflict physical damage, they inflict mental damage. So that adds a nice layer. So when they get to stress level 100, they'll either have something negative will happen, like they'll, again, fearful, irrational, selfish, or something positive will happen where they'll become courageous, or they'll become stalwart, in which they'll be like, you know what? You can't kill me, motherfucker.
Yeah, I got my shit together.
Like I'm at stress level 100, but I've become stalwart, which means that my stress level goes all the way back down to 0. And oh, by the way, almost every single turn, I'm going to rally my party and lower their individual stress as well.
That's cool. I really like that.
And it's meant to be difficult, because along the way, you can also, in each level, enemies can inflict diseases on you.
Ooh.
Which you need to go to the medical, the sanatorium to heal, so you can remove disease. And, at the end of every level, provided you live, you have to take those characters and reduce their stress level. And there are many ways you can reduce a character's stress level. You can go to the bar.
Booze.
And in the tavern, you can either choose to get drunk, you can gamble, or you can go to the brothel.
Oh!
Yes, you can go to the brothel to relieve your stress.
The classic ways of letting off steam, as it were.
Well, there are 3 other methods. There's also the Abbey, in which you can meditate, you can pray, or you can whip yourself.
Oh boy. So very from flagellation then?
Yes. And depending on some of the character traits that your characters might have, there are some characters where they have a negative quirk, as they call them in the game, where the only stress relief that they can have is self-flagellation. Or they only can drink. Say you have I love all of the different possibilities, because I had a character who I used to take to the brothel way too often, and then they acquire a negative quirk saying, no more brothel for you.
So do those negative traits affect them in battle? Like they're in the middle of combat and they're just thinking about the brothel? Or like they've
no,
got a disease or something?
It can't. The latter, not the former.
Gotcha.
Or, and sometimes, your characters, they stay too long at the bar. Like, because each time you play a level, it takes up the span of 1 week in game time.
Gotcha.
So, like, you have a character that decides, I'm gonna drink and get plastered, and I'm gonna reduce my stress. So you play with another group of 4, and then it comes back the next week and says, your character, spent a week at the bar, and now we can't find him.
Oh no.
So that character will be unavailable for that week.
This game just sounds way too rough for me. Way too much real life.
It got real.
It's so much fun. I love it to death. Because there's so many things in this game actively trying to stop you. It's not sort of Dark Souls hard. It's not, the punishing difficulty of, say, a Dark Souls or a Demon Souls, but it requires a good deal of thinking and strategy and resource and money management just to make sure that you can level up the town, but also make sure that your characters are all, nice and calm, they're not diseased, or, things like that. It's really fun. I'm almost all the way through it, and I'm looking forward to it. And then I'm going to buy the DLC.
Nice.
Which is called the Crimson Court. And it gives you a few more classes, a few more town locations, and things like that. So, there are achievements, and just... I was a guest on the Sprites and Dice podcast with Wyatt and Eric, and we devoted the entire episode to Darkest Dungeon. It's just that much fun. I love it. I absolutely love it. So that's what I've spent most of the summer doing. There've been other games that I have played. I picked up a very short game, but it's a lot of fun, and it's hilarious at the same time. It's a few years old. It's called DLC Quest.
Yes, I have heard of it.
Where it's this sort of little RPG-ish sort of game, but it makes fun of the whole idea of buying DLC to progress.
Yes.
Like, no, you cannot fight this enemy because you don't have the sword and that you need to go buy. It just takes the idea of pay to play or pay to win and just makes a mockery of it, and I love it.
So it's like metafiction then, in that regard?
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah, and but do you actually have to buy the swords, or you buy the sword with like in-game currency or something?
It's in-game currency.
Yeah, so the whole point is you're not actually spending additional funds to play the game, though, right?
No.
Good. Yeah, I figured if they didn't, if they went that way, they would be defeating themselves. So I just wanted to be sure.
Yeah, that would be taking the joke a little too far.
Yeah, that would be the Fallout 4 Creation Club $2.50 horse armor, which is a throwback to the Skyrim horse armor. But that's a different story.
Trying to think of other games that I have played this summer, because Nick got through most of mine.
Did you play Spectre of Torment?
I did, yes. I've played some of that. I'm not done with it. Me
neither. But I did start this summer also, yeah.
Oh, the Spectre of Torment. I mean, Shovel Knight is... And they've just announced the next expansion, well, the last one.
King of Cards.
Yes, they just announced that, and I'm just like, oh shit, I need to get on to beating Spectre of Torment.
Well, you still have a handful of, what, 7 months or something? No, we're in September. 5 months before the next one drops.
Oh, I'm sure I'll beat it by that point. But
yeah, oh yeah.
Like before it came out, it was going to be released on the Switch first. So
yeah.
I wanted to play it at PAX, but the line for that was so long at the Nintendo booth that I was just like, no, I'll wait for the PC. I'll wait for it to come out on PC because that's what I have it on, and I'm not disappointed.
Yeah, me neither. Like I said, I haven't finished it, but I did enjoy it so far. I heard like some really good things about the storyline, but I just haven't gotten all the way through it yet.
And like some of the other features that they included with that, like the body swap mode, the co-op mode now.
Yep.
So
I mean, I cannot lavish enough love on Yacht Club games. They're just so good. They are really, really good. They really know how to treat their fans well, and they're doing a lot of the right things. Yeah.
And I need to now. I have another recording after this, but probably at some point this weekend I'm gonna have to jump back into the Spectre of Torment and play that. And the last game that I will talk about, this actually came out this summer, just a short while ago. The third game by Supergiant, Pyre.
Oh, nice.
Yes, more depression.
I wouldn't say more depression. Wyatt went through this game. I've only just started it. Take 3-on-3 basketball and create myths and legends and a narrative around it with fantasy elements. And that's really all I will say about it, because again, I've just really just barely begun, but it's looking very promising. I mean, the previous games by Supergiant, Bastion and Transistor, were so good.
Yes, I need to talk to you about Bastion sometime, because I just loved it, and there's some moments that I think about all the time in that game.
The soundtrack is so good, and Darren Korb, he's so good. His
narration, yeah.
Darren Korb is the composer.
The composer, yeah.
Logan Cunningham is the voice actor.
Gotcha. Yeah, he is such a good voice actor in that too.
I don't know. You should take some time, if you haven't already, when you go to PAX South, because Supergiant has a booth there as well.
Yeah.
You should take the time, if the line isn't 3 hours long, and actually, because the entire team's there.
Yeah.
I've chatted with Logan Cunningham and Darren Korb. They're so accessible to their fans. And at the last PAX East, I'm on a couch in the Supergiant booth, playing multiplayer Pyre before the game was actually released. And there's Darren and Logan just watching. They're right there, just talking about the game. They're just, the whole creative team loves to talk about, their games and why they do what they do, and it's just so great.
Yeah, I love that. I love that there's that level of accessibility. You can't expect that from every developer, but I love that there are some developers that can.
Yeah, so... And that is my list for what I have played this summer. And that's unless anyone else has anything to add, I'm gonna wrap this one up. So anyone have any final thoughts?
No, but it sounds like even though it's typically the lull period of summer, there will never be a shortage of games. It always sounds like we'll always have something in our backlogs to get through.
Yeah, Well, it seems like even though for all of our busy schedules, we still found time to play quite a substantial amount of games this summer. So I'm curious to hear what you have to say, Internet. What games did you play this summer that maybe Nick and Gabe and I should look at that you really, really enjoy? You can tell us right on our website at dlcpodcast.com. Use the feedback button. Or you can tell us on our Facebook and Twitter pages at DL Content on Twitter. And so, different bunches of ways to get a hold of us. And again, every single episode can also be found on the website as well as iTunes, YouTube, Stitcher, and Google Play Music. So, with that, all that remains for me to do is to thank Nick and Gabe for being on this episode with me. So thank you, gentlemen. Welcome back.
No problem. Yeah, great to be back.
Yeah.
And with that, I'm Brian. Have a good one, everybody.